All right, welcome back everybody to another video. Today we're going to be working on some of the gratings for the hatches, as well as the ladders that go down to the lower deck. But first I wanted to give you a status on the secondary planking. I've got this side here entirely done, and I've got to say I think it looks amazing. Um, I still have to sand it, everything smooth and whatnot, but I really like the way it came out. I still have to do this side on it, so there's still a little bit of work yet to do to get this stuff done. But like I said, I think it's really looking good. So I said we're going to work on, like I said, some of the gratings that are going to go into this hatch right here. We'll also make a ladder that's going to go down in there. And then I don't know, I think the camera's picking it up a little bit. There's a hatch actually underneath like this deck extension over here. And so we're going to put some gratings on that. There's going to be a ladder that kind of goes in and whatnot in there. I don't know why they have it, us do it kind of at this stage. To me, it seems like that should have been done before putting this deck on. But I guess we'll get in there and we'll see, exactly how it's going to go. So let me go and get set up, and we'll start by making the gratings. Okay, so the gratings for the hatches will be made out of these little pre-cut parts. I think anybody who's built a model ship before has seen these, and it's pretty simple. You just kind of start stacking these things together, through the grooves, and you can form the grates. Now, there's two kind of approaches or ways you can do this. You can sit and figure out, okay, based off what size grate you need, like how many holes and whatnot you need, and cut each of these pieces to length and kind of just glue the exact amount together. The instructions for this have you do a slightly different method, which is to build a full grid, which is like 16 by 16 of these strips, and then go from that and cut out the various size hatches that we need. And today we're going to be making 3 of them, which is only going to use actually less than half of that 16 by 16 grid. But that's exactly kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with just getting the end pieces done on here, and then I'm going to be using a thin CA glue to kind of to hold everything together. So some of these fit really well, some are a little tight. For these first ones here, I want ones that are just going to sit nice. So there we go. That one went in. Okay. And so that gives us a nice box. Let's do an extra one on each side here to start, just to kind of make sure that each of these sides here are squared up. There we go. That looks pretty good. I can use the grid on my cutting board there to kind of make sure everything's square. I can start putting some drops of thin CA down on these. You can see I'm building it over a little bit of wax paper. That's to keep this from actually sticking to my table. It will stick, the CA will stick a little bit to the wax paper, but it's generally pretty easy to get off. So I'm just going to go now. I've got it pretty well squared up. Here I can flip it over And we'll put 2 more pieces in. That one doesn't want to sit down in. Okay. All right, so I think you probably at this point kind of get the idea how this is going to work. Let me go ahead and I'll finish the set that runs through here. We'll come back and flip it over and do the other side. All right, one side is done. Now I go and put the rest in. And notice I'm not actually gluing them as I go along. I just did those first corners to get the frame kind of stable and stuff, but we'll come back and glue all of these here together when we're done. Okay, now we've got this nice grid for our hatches, and it's just a matter then really of going over each one of these and putting just a little drop of CA. Kind of keep them all right. The grid is completely done, as you can see, with all of the joints held together with CA. I mean, it's actually an immensely strong structure. I tried to take my knife to cut through one of these, and the CA absorbed into the wood, which and made it extremely hard. So I'm probably going to have to use um, a saw to cut these pieces out, which is going to preclude me from really being able to film it because of just the way I've got to hold it and everything. But like I said, this first step calls for 3 little grids. One of them, or 2 of them, are 18 millimeters by 11 millimeters, which basically comes out to 3 by 5 holes, but with the outsides, these little extensions cut off. So they're cut flush to the edges. And then there's one which is going to be bigger, which is like 18 by 23 millimeter, and that's like a 4 by 6 hole, but it needs the little, I mean, I call them extensions. I don't know what they are, but on both sides, basically surrounding the whole thing. So let me go ahead and cut those out, and then we'll come back and take a look. Okay, I've got the 3 pieces cut out that we needed, and that was a lot tougher than I was anticipating it being. I said, yeah, that CA kind of absorbed into that wood and made it very, very strong, very hard to get out. So going forward, I'm not sure if I will pre-build like an entire grid block and cut things out. I might cut the wood to size and then, um, just assemble kind of what I need. So kind of lesson learned there. So set this part aside. I'm not sure. I think there is a few more pieces that we're going to cut out, and we'll set these 2 aside for right now as well. So that leaves this, which I've already kind of measured and sized this grid down to kind of where I need it to be to fit. was a little bit smaller than what they said to cut it out, and I got this little plank here, because what we're going to do is going to use this to fill half of this opening up. So it's pretty simple, and I kind of left it does fit, but it's pretty tight. So that way I can get it in there, I can get it positioned, and it's going to hold its position before I actually kind of glue it in. So let's see if I can do this with the camera to get it in there. And this piece also I cut just a little bit tight. Looks like it's a risk of falling in there. Let me pull it back out. There we go. So that's kind of what it's going to look like when I get it done. Those things aren't seated quite right. So let me move the camera so that I can get in there and get a closer look. I'll get them seated, and then I'm just going to put a little drop of thin CA around the corners there to kind of secure it all into place. Well, I've finished getting the grate and that little extra part kind of all glued in, ready to go. We still have to put a ladder going down there, but I'm going to turn my attention to these other two grates that we're making here. Now these are going to be a little bit different. Using, instead of the thicker 2x7 walnut, be using little 2x2, which means the grate's actually going to stick up above the border a little bit. And these two are going to have a border built around them, and then they'll be put in place, and we'll be building up a border around another hatch, but you can't really see the hatch. It's underneath this deck extension that comes out. And so I am changing a little bit. This is once again where the dimensions and the instructions and stuff are a little bit suspect and whatnot. So everything was perfectly fine in cutting these pieces out for making the border, but it basically said, okay, so for the big hatch, we needed two that are 20 millimeters. Really, if you look at the book with the pictures in, they probably should be about 22. I cut them at 20 because I figured, oh well, those two were the dimensions were spot on, and of course they weren't. But it's not going to really matter back where it is. You can barely see these things. The other thing is it had me do was cut two lengths that are 36 millimeters, and when you start going and kind of measuring them, that made absolutely no sense in there. So I'm going to actually cut one of them down, because it only had you put a border around three sides of this hatch. And while it's very difficult, and maybe once the ship's all built up, you can't really see the third side of the hatch, because I'm going to cut one of these down, be able to put it in there. And then I cut one strip that was longer, because I think the other thing was that it may have wanted us to put two of these together, which would have been easier to come in, because you'd be coming in from both sides of the extension like that. But then that's still way too long. So I've already figured out exactly how long that needs to be so that one piece can go in there. I don't think there's any way I can film actually assembling all of that, because it's just, I got to keep moving the deck around and whatnot, and I don't think there's any really good angles because I got to like sneak everything underneath this. So once I get that done, I'll try to figure out some way to get the camera in there and show what's happening. But we can start here by putting the border around these. I've already picked out which side was the better looking side that I want to have up. And we'll just put, you got to do the long edges of these first. I'm just going to put a little touch of CA here. On the end, put it back over the, let's see if I can move it so you guys can actually see it here in the camera. And so I'm just making sure everything is flat to the building surface, and then we'll repeat. There's my glue, wasn't quite dry yet before I picked it up. So I think it's going to be a little bit difficulty because I'm kind of have to have the camera in the way and my hands keep getting in front of everything. So let me go build the frames and I'll put these hatches in and then kind of show you guys what the final result looks like. All right, so I've gone and framed these parts, and I just laid kind of everything out so you can see this is how everything's going to be arranged on the ship underneath that deck, where, and in the middle here, that I bumped everything, is the opening, is the hatch, and then there's going to be a ladder that goes down in there. If the parts look a little bit shinier than they did before, then that's true, because I actually went ahead and varnished them, just because, again, varnishing these parts once they're underneath there in place is going to be difficult. I'm just going to use CA, so that to glue it in, not wood glue. So the CA will bond just fine with the varnish already on. So let me go ahead and get these installed, and then we'll come back and look at the results. All right, well, as you can see, I've got the hatches and the grids glued in down there. I said it was a pretty tight fit getting everything in there and lined up and stuff, but I think I did a pretty good job of it. And once all the rigging, everything else on the ship is up, you're really not going to be able to see much, or at least even get probably to look in at the angles and stuff that we're looking at right now. So I think tucked back in there, it's as good as we can expect. So now the next step here in working on these hatches is to put in the ladders. Okay, I'm getting ready to work on the ladders that are going to go down. There's two of them that we're going to make. All of the wood for them is in the little plastic boxes that you get. So if you're looking for the 1 millimeter by 4 millimeter wood in your bunches of sticks, you're not going to find it in there. It's just these little tiny planks. There's 4 of them that are in there. I think you really only need 3, because each one of these has 9 steps. When you're going and starting to glue these sides in, and these sides seem like pretty nice, high quality wood. You got to remember there's a left and a right side, so you have to kind of match the pairs up. I've already taken and cut one of the planks up into the stairs. What the instructions say is to glue the top and the bottom rung in, or yeah, and then glue the other side on, and then slide each of the other steps into place. And I don't think I'm going to do that. The fit is very tight. Now I've gone in and I ran the planks of wood before I cut them up on this little grit here. This is something called perma grit, which is basically just a sanding tool, and it's got a fine side on it. So I was able to reduce the thickness a tiny amount, And then I also have this thing, which is kind of a wedge shaped. It's got sandpaper glued to it, and it's actually right around a millimeter on this narrow end. So I went in and sanded, which basically, each of the grooves, which widens them a little. It's still a relatively tight fit, but workable. Sorry for bumping the camera there. So what I think I'm going to do is glue all of the steps on one side, and then go and I'll make any adjustments that I need, more additional sanding on this other side so that it's going to go in. And actually, I say glue, I'm actually just going to insert them because they are, as I said, a bit of a tight fit. I'll get the other side on and then come in with some thin CA and actually glue them up after the fact. So if it turns out this technique that I want to use isn't going to work, then I can always just disassemble it and do it the way the instructions say. So as it is, I'm going to start here by sticking, trying to get the steps centered up in there. Okay. Of course, that one was a little bit looser. I'd have to work from the middle out. All right, I see I'm going to have to make some more adjustments to these before I kind of put them in, and it's really hard to put these together with the camera in the way. If you could see how I've got this kind of set up here, you would understand. I've got one arm on one side of the camera and the other arm on the other side. I can't really get close enough to these pieces. So all right, so let me go. I'm going to move the camera. We'll get these pieces in, and then we'll come back and put the other side of the ladder on. All right, well, I got the first ladder done. Let's see, went to bed together fairly well. Needed to adjust a lot of the planks, kind of sanding them towards the edge so that to make them fit a little bit easier. I ended up going with what was in the instructions. Okay, so my original plan to put them all in and then put the other side on just wasn't going to work. I was able to get the two end ones in, and then through sanding and adjusting and stuff, get all of the others in. Now these have all been glued with some thin CA, and it's ready to be inserted into the ship. So I'm going to set this one aside. We'll get the other one built, and then we'll come back and we'll put them in. Okay, well, both of the ladders are now made and ready to be inserted. So the second one went together, a lot faster than the first. So they knew exactly what to do and how to make it go in there. So that what took me probably almost 10 minutes to assemble the first one took less than 2 minutes to create for the second one. So anyway, so let me go and try to find a decent position for the camera where you can see, and then we'll go and certainly insert one of the ladders. The one that goes in that hatch that's underneath, I'm probably not going to be able to film just because of where it is. You wouldn't be able to see anything anyway. Well, let me go and reset, and I'll come back and we'll put the first ladder in. Okay, let's see how this works and see if I can do this without knocking the camera over and everything. So I've got the ladder here. I'm going to put a little bit of thick CA on the bottom here where it's going to sit. And it's going to lean up there. I think I'm going to leave the CA off until I get it inserted in here, and then right before it, I'll put some CA on. It's a little tight, which is fine. That way, I know it's not going to slide all the way down and fall in. There we go. I think it's in. The bottom is glued. Now put a little touch of just thin CA in there to mount the top. That's all there is to put in the ladder. In there. Okay. So the other one is going to be, I think, a little bit more difficult. Here, let's see if I can make it so that you can at least even see what I'm doing. So I've got to get it down in here. Let me double check and make sure I'm putting it on the right side, although it probably doesn't really matter. Yeah, okay, that's the right spot for it. So the same thing here, I'll put some CA down on the bottom. This one I guess we'll do the same thing. This one I've got to use some tweezers to get in there. And there goes, and it fell in. So let me go fish it out before the glue dries, and I'll probably just do it by off camera and then come back. All right, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's in there. You know, barely going to be visible to anything, but it's a part, one of just the little details that goes in there, and so I'm sure from some places it'll look good. Anyway, so I think this is a good spot to end this video, because the next thing we're going to do is a fairly big like sub build of it. It's going to be a skylight that's going to go, if I can move the camera around. Yeah, it's going to cover this hatch here. So it's got several pieces. It sits up above. It's going to have a curved top with windows and stuff in it. So yeah, building that will probably be its own video. So this is a good spot to kind of end this one. If you like what you see, please like, subscribe, and comment, and thank you for watching.